Then we'll dive right into the main call for innovation projects launched by RCN, and we have also Marit Kristiansen and Rasmus Sulebakk who will present.
You hear me? Yes? Good. I speak very loud normally, but I also have very small ears, so I tend to lose these microphones. But I'll try to keep them on. First of all, I will not repeat everything that Liv Marte said, but the background for these calls are the SDGs and the UN Development Goals. And the three main objectives of the calls from the Research Council are the same as for the overall mechanisms. However, we have gone a bit more into details, and we will give you some more specific priorities. The objectives of the call, the innovation call from the Research Council, is increased enrollment, reduction in dropout, improved learning outcomes in primary, lower, and/or upper secondary school. And interventions targeting girls in marginalized areas or from marginalized groups will be prioritized. This is a priority within the calls from the Research Council. The second objective, increased job creation and lifelong learning through digital access. And here we have two sub-goals in the overall mechanisms, but in the call from the Research Council is only the objective B that is within the call priority, and that's youth and women acquire job-relevant skills. For youth and women to require job-relevant skills with an emphasis on digital skills and entrepreneurship. The third objective, the health objective, is quite broad. Improved health of women and children, and especially youth. And since this is a very broad objective, priority will be given to projects that include one or more of the sub-objectives you see here. And that is adaptation and introduction, training and use of medical equipment and solutions, adaptation and use of digital tools and digital education and training, improved nutrition and development of children, and implementation in crisis and conflict-affected contexts. Who can apply? The applicant must be a Norwegian organization with a designated project administrator. And it must be registered in the Central Coordinating Register for Legal Entities. And this can be Norwegian companies, groups of companies, industry organizations, research institutions, foundations, and NGOs. But we still, even though we require that the applicant per se, the main applicant, is Norwegian, we do encourage international collaboration, and we think that is extremely important to be able to complete such a project and to implement such a project. So international collaboration is encouraged, and especially local partners, we find it very important. In addition, public-private partnerships is encouraged, as both Liv Marte and Jesper has mentioned. The amount of funding from the Research Council's innovation call now is approximately 50 million kroner. That can go to innovation projects, and each project can receive, but we estimate a typical innovation project from the Research Council to receive or to apply for between 5 and 15 million kroner. Depending on what you're going to do, apply for what you are actually going to do. Don't necessarily push the limit, but of course you do, but still, I have to say that. Each project can last between 2 and 4 years. And what we expect then from this call is that we can fund between 4 and 6 projects. Minimum 40 million of these 50 million we announce now are earmarked education or education in combination with health. And there should be targeting the objectives launched in the call. It's important to say. The legal amount of funding is regulated by the state aid rules, and my colleague Rasmus Sulebakk will come more into that. The state aid rules and how you have in what way you need to accomplish or to follow those rules depend on the type of activities and the type of partners involved in the project. And when I talk about activities, I talk about fundamental research, industrial research, or experimental development. The maximum funding for partners in the private sector is 50% of approved project costs. We estimate that as a maximum in general, but this depends on a lot of things. Research institutions and civil society organizations can get 100% of funding, but own financing is strongly encouraged. So prerequisites for funding. You have to target one of the call objectives. And as Liv Marte explained, the priority will be given to projects that target one or more of the 12 focus countries. I won't repeat them. You have to demonstrate good local knowledge. And it's an asset if you highlight potential for scalability and implementation of the innovation. And all projects funded by the innovation call is expected to cooperate with a formative dialogue research project that will follow all these projects. And that's important. Assessment criteria, I will then leave the floor to Jan Rasmus.
Thank you. You can hear me, everybody. It's good. I will go through the assessment criteria for this call. Sometimes call it assessment criteria or evaluation criteria, but at least it's a very important issue because it's based on these criteria that your proposal will be evaluated. And as you can see, we have 4 criteria for this type of innovation project for this call. We have the relevance to the call, level of innovation, implementation, and impact. It is a bit special construction, this call, because we have in sort of a mix between different type of criteria used in the Research Council for innovation projects. But we also have take some criteria that's normally used in Horizon 2020. For those of you that are familiar with research and innovation project there, you will see that some of the criteria, like implementation and impact, is normal criteria from that types of instruments. The button. Okay. Oh, wrong way. Okay, we got a bit more detail to these different criteria. We have relevance to the call, the first criteria, very important because here we have to describe your proposal in line with the objectives of the call and the thematic priorities. And as you can have heard earlier today, and you can see in the call, it's quite some objectives that you have to write your proposal to fit into. And it's very important that you read the call text very carefully and try to write your proposal in line with the objectives and also the target objectives and the target groups as well. It's very important. Level of innovation. This is so, as long as this is a form of innovation projects we are asking for. So innovation, as we define it at the Research Council, is something new you bring in and some new technology and new services that differentiate for the state of the art what we find today. And of course, it doesn't need to be a form of disruptive or radical innovation, but it can be some knowledge that you use on a different type of area to create a new services, a new product, or within a new application area. So, and we normally have some different types of innovation area that you can see on the screen. We have new products, new services, but also new methods and new business models as well. You can see down on these presentations. So different types of innovation can be part of this. Okay. The impact criteria is also very important, because this criteria really describe how the results of your project really have impacts on the society and the challenge being addressed in your proposal. So you have to really describe the value for the results of the project, both for the public sector and for the industry or business partners as well, but also for the society and the individuals as well. And it can be a bit difficult to really address this criteria, but if you just try to organize the structure, it like you see on the screen, and also how it's described in the template for the project descriptions, it's a structured way to how to address this criteria. But as I said, it's very important that you try to describe how your results can have some impact on the objectives of the call and objectives of your proposal. So of course, the effect on the public sector and the industry as well, but also how this project also, through a form of collaboration between industry, between research institutions as well, can be used to how to transfer knowledge between these different types of actors, as it's written in the third point here, dissemination of knowledge. And also very important for this call that you can describe how the results of this project can be scaled, and how the results can be used not only for the target groups necessary in the project, but how this can be scaled to different countries, to a larger scale of the populations as well. So this is a scalability issue is also important for this call, so to just keep notice to that. The third one, okay, we have two parts of this impact criteria. The first one I mentioned, and the second one is you don't only explain how these impacts, you want the type of impact that you want to achieve, but you also have to describe a plan to how to achieve these impacts, and that is what we call a dissemination and exploitation of the results. You have to describe how the results of the project really creates impact on the user groups involved in the project and the target groups as well. And it's not only plans for how to publish the results in scientific publication as well, but also how plans to implement the results and create products, new service, test it on the environment with users as well. So this the last point, plans for ensuring that important users are incorporated to take part in dissemination activities is very important, to have the user involvement in the project as well. To describe this in a good way. The fourth criteria, implementation, is really how do you plan to do the projects. Project and work plan is described here. Also, you have to describe the different work packages, how to organize the scientific work as well. You have this level of research relevant to the project objectives. This is more or less, I mean, it is an innovation project, so it is important also that to describe that some new knowledge is necessary to obtain this innovation. And it's not only to use existing knowledge, but you have to do some more research. And these activities have to be described in the work plan in the projects. So that is very important. And still, the management structures, how to want to work, how to want to collaborate, how do you want to include risk and innovation management as well. So how to really describe how to carry out the projects really is part of this implementation criteria. And also this is about resources, how to the budget for the project, how to plan type of economic issues as well. I come a bit back to that now. Yes. And we have this template. You have seen this. I think it's out now. This template for project descriptions, maximum 15 pages. As you can see, we have these 4 assessment criteria. You can find it easily in the structure of the project description. We have relevance, we have innovation, we have implementation, and impact and dissemination. So really you can see a clear combination or link between the assessment criteria and the points in the project descriptions. So we know where to write the texts that are evaluated through the assessment criteria as well. I don't want to go into detail about this. We can you can have some maybe have some questions. We can take this afterwards. Yes. We also have an attachment to this project descriptions. You have to provide a partner description for each partner in the project. 1 page like this, quite simply to straightforward to write. Only some information about the partners. The role of the partner, what they want to do in the project, you write in the project descriptions. We have some budget tables as well. You have to fill in some budget tables in the project description, but we have some attached budget tables as well. It's important to see that in this table that you can see you have to describe for each work package. You normally organize the project in work package, but you have to define for each work package whenever it's fundamental research, whenever it's experimental research or experimental development in that work package. And we ask you to everybody to split the work package in units that could define is either one of the 3 categories. And because that makes it more easy for us to check that the funding given to the partners is in line with the state aid rules. I'll come back to that, but that is the most important message now. It's try to split the work package in separate units that you can define is either within one of these 3 categories. And don't mix. So it's better to have more work package then. Also, we have this plan where you describe the cost. It's quite straightforward. You take each partner, describe the cost for each partner, payroll and indirect expenses, equipment, or other operating expenses as well. You have a total for each partner. That is really only the cost table for each partner. And you have the total cost in the bottom line. It's summarized automatically in the Excel spreadsheet when you fill it out. Still, we have this. This must match, of course, the funding plan for each partner. You have to describe eventual in-kind contribution from the partner. We have some in-kind contribution or cash as well, and match what come from the research council to match the cost for that specific partner. This is very important because the state aid rules now say that we have to go through to check for every industrial partner that they don't get too much funded from the research council. So there are some limits for how much industrial partner X can have in support from the government in that type of projects. So it makes it more easier to check that if you use this structure to fill in the tables. Yes. But this is only for the industrial partners. You know, from the research organizations as well, they can get 100% financed or supported from public money. But this is especially for the industry partners, business partners. So more information about the state aid rules. It's not quite scary about this really. It can be. It's not so complicated as well. But it's written in the homepage of the Research Council. You click on the upper left, apply for funding, and you can into this. You can see state aid rules, and I recommend everybody to have business partners in the project to read through these rules. You have to yourself to be familiar with these rules. And if, of course, have questions about it, you can ask us. So also how do you fill out the tables as well? It can be, it shouldn't be so complicated. Don't make it too complicated, because it shouldn't be, but we can help you with that. But I recommend everybody to use some time to get familiar with it. Yes, I won't read through all the text, but it's straight. It's written quite clear there, and we also have some text in Norwegian as well, which that make it more easy to read. Norwegian translate on the same web page. Okay, that's was all from now. We open. I guess there will be a lot of questions to this criteria as well. We can take it afterwards. I know Åse will just finish the presentation with some few slides.
Can you hear me? Did you mute it? No? I'll try to put it on my ears again. Yep. Good. All the way back there. Yeah, good. So, the assessment process. You see an overview of that here. We receive applications submitted by the Norwegian partners. Sorry. Then it's controlled administratively here at the Research Council for formal errors. That is, for example, if it's submitted by a non-Norwegian partner, for example, then it's instantly rejected on formal grounds. Those applications that go through this pre-assessment, normally most of them, are assessed by international expert panels. We divide it into thematic areas depending a little bit on how many applications we receive. So how we put together these panels depend on the bunch of applications that we actually have on the table for every call. Based on the assessments from the international panels, they either get where they have assessed all the assessment criteria that Jan Rasmus just explained for you. They have a bad or low assessment, negative assessment. I tried to make it simplified a little bit here. Have a negative assessment or a positive assessment. The negative assessment, if it's a very low marks, they will be rejected. If it's a positive assessment, we will go through it administratively and do a portfolio assessment, and where we look at the whole Vision 2030 mechanisms as a whole and see how the projects fit in. And then the remaining projects are even rejected or funded. This means that all projects need to fit into the call text and meet the objectives of the call. Otherwise, you will fall out of the system on one of these steps. But I don't lose faith. I mean, I know it's 3 red dots and 1 green, but that doesn't mean that we are not fair. It's a fair process. It looks a bit harsh maybe, but just stick to the call text. That's my bottom line, or my main message, take-home message, you call it. Important dates. Last week of June, or everything was published online. 27th of July, the call will be open, so you can start working on the call online at the e-søknad at the Research Council's web pages. The 6th of September, you should have submitted your application once. And that means that without formal errors. Try it out. You can submit how many times you want before the deadline, the 7th of September. Try it out, because it's a pity if you stand there 5 to 1, the 7th of September, and it's a formal reason that you don't manage to submit the application. So 6th of September, see if your application is correct and complete. 7th of September, before 1 o'clock, submit your final application. December 2016, we will announce the results. and the projects must start up between January and May 2017. That's all. Remember this. Thank you.